And with Nip, it was just, somebody that legitimately cared about your well-being, that's gonna give it to you raw, that's gonna tell you when you're right, and that's gonna tell you when you're wrong.
Nipsey Hussle left a legacy behind. He was a Grammy-winning rapper, a leader, entrepreneur, community-minded man, and a father.
Some believe in it, others don't. I believe in destiny. That's the only way I could explain it.
Today, I spoke with Jorge Peniche, who was Nipsey Hussle's business partner, photographer, tour manager, and friend since 2008. Jorge breaks down his top 5 photos that he's taken of Nipsey and shares stories from their 11-year relationship.
To me, it revealed just how fun Nipsey is. Great energy, a ball of energy. Anywhere, any room we walked into was just good, positive energy, good conversation.
Let's go, Rush! All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have a special guest on today's show. He's one of the most talented people I know. My man, Jorge Peniche, better known as JP. Welcome to the show.
What's going on, brother? It's good to connect on this platform. I've been following all of the pieces that you've been doing and getting some heavy hitters on here. And I always loved and appreciated your interview style. It's just so conversational, and your personality, is perfect, for these type of conversations.
I appreciate that, man. I know you're super busy, so I'm grateful that you're putting some time aside today to do this. So thank you very much.
Man, for Rush, we move mountains.
All right, I like that. So today we're going to break down your top 5 Nipsey Hussle photographs that you've taken. But before we do that, how about we let the people know about our friendship and how we first met? Do you remember?
We met in 2006 at DJ Ski's office and Sam Kewenfar's office. They had a company called High Public Relations, entertainment PR company. It was right there, right on the Melrose Strip, just west of La Brea. You were actually, I believe, already working with Ski in some capacity, and that's its own story. And I think the viewers that are watching this are already pretty familiar with that. But I came in, I don't know if it was months or weeks after you did, through Ben Baller. I connected with Ben Baller via a shoe forum called NikeTalk.com. He was gracious enough to introduce me to Ski and Sam. That's kind of where we bumped into each other, and we got to see a really special era, I think, of, the LA music scene, specifically hip hop. And, Game was just about to work on his sophomore album. In fact, I think he was working on his sophomore album in unison with his mixtape, The Black Wall Street Journal, Volume 1. And, some of the notable mentions, obviously Quincy White, Kendrick Lamar, J-Rock, your boy. So a lot of talent in one room, and moving in the same circles and spaces. So it was exciting times, and, just really privileged to be in the presence of them as well as you, because you're a hustler, and I always appreciated what you do.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, look, your resume is ridiculous, but let's start off with, I guess, your photography. Like some of the names that you photographed: The Game, Nas, Kendrick Lamar, Tyler the Creator. I mean, the list goes on and on. When you first picked up a camera, did you ever imagine you'd be photographing some of the most iconic hip hop artists of all time?
It's hard to say. I've always thought the people that I got the privilege of working with were talented, but you don't know, the trajectory of their careers. Some people you can kind of tell from the beginning, like when I met Nipsey, you pretty much know where that's headed, because he just has he has the intangibles, that whether he did music or not, or was, in some type of entertainment or celebrity space, this is a guy that, is going to draw eyeballs to him when he walks in a room, let alone when he speaks, then it's game over. So, Nipsey, you already know where that's headed. At least I did. That's how I felt. And then there's other talent, that you think it's headed some way, and then, they switch directions and they go into another category within the music scene. So honestly, I just try to get my camera in front of the people who, I respect, whose music I appreciate, and whose talents, I think, are compatible or on the same level of what I'm trying to do.
Well, let's get into how you first met Nipsey, and this will probably tie into the first photo that we're going to break down and talk about. How did you first meet Nipsey Hussle, and how did you establish that relationship?
So MySpace for me, was, like a magic key of sorts, that it allowed me access and the license to get in contact with a lot of different people, that typically I wouldn't have access to because I didn't grow up with certain individuals, or I have no automatic like shoe-ins in the entertainment industry. And so Nipsey I met in 2008 via MySpace. A good friend of mine, Will, who used to go by the moniker of Mr. Don't Know, used to do music. He put me on to Nipsey's first mixtape, Bullets Ain't Got No Name, Volume 1. I listened to it from front to back, and, you know, I was completely just like in awe and marveled at, you know, the level of introspect and intellect, you know, in his music, and just the rawness of it felt authentic. It felt like something that was unique and special. It had as much of a nostalgic feel as it, you know, as it did as something that was new, you know, that was modern, that was a fresh take on something, that was a update on the state of, you know, Los Angeles and the West Coast, and specifically South Central LA. I became, you know, I latched on from that point on, from listening to Volume 1 and then listened to Volume 2, watched all the interviews that I could watch, and I was really, you know, enamored by, you know, just the human being that he was, and the level of artistry, and I saw the, you know, immense potential. So as a photographer, you know, I want to get this person in front of my lens, and I used MySpace as a way to extend the olive branch. And fortunately, you know, Nipsey extended it back. Or I think actually, now that I find out, you know, Adam was actually the one that was on MySpace corresponding on behalf of Nipsey. So shout out to my brother Adam. He was the one that may have actually responded to me and gave me the information to go meet the first time with Nipsey at his music video shoot for Hustle in the House. You know, I went with my good friend Weddle, who's a really, you know, well-known tattoo artist here in LA. Shot over together and pulled up to Crenshaw and Slauson, and it was a sight to see. You know, it's unlike anything I had ever seen before. Virtually every car, motorcycle, bike, I'm sure people that were, you know, listening to stuff on their iPods or iPhones at the time, actually probably iPods, everybody was listening to, you know, Bullets Ain't Got No Name Volume 2 or Volume 1, and they're playing a song off of that project. So it's definitely, you know, I like any type of gut feelings that I had about Nipsey being the one, you know, were confirmed, and just entering into his ecosystem and into his environment, and seeing that everybody was championing behind him. And this to me meant that this guy is the truth. Nipsey, I think, was elsewhere shooting another scene on 63rd and Bryanhurst. So he probably came like 20 or 30 minutes after Wedo and I pulled up. Literally when he pulled up to the Shell gas station, which is literally on the corner of Crenshaw and Slauson, he came directly to me and introduced himself. We shook hands briefly, and then I just followed him from there on, just kind of like fly on the wall photography and shooting candid photos and portraits in between takes. And I thought, you know, to me, that was pretty special because this is our first time meeting. And I mean, literally everybody is there for him. Everybody is pulling for his attention. And the fact that he gave me that moment, you know, to shake hands, introduce each other to one another, I think was very special and very telling, you know, the person that, you know, he is.
So this is back in 2008. How would you describe Nipsey back in this stage of his career?
Back in 2008, Nipsey, I think, was fully immersed in music, and you could tell it was like 1 foot in the streets and 1 foot out, still to that day, you know, like he always was rooted throughout his whole career that I knew him, you know, he never left his neighborhood. So I think that's one thing that's very unique and special about Nip. I mean, all the core elements of Nipsey that people know of him as a very most recent, all of those things were there, I think, when I met him in 2008. There's definitely certain things, you know, that he was a young guy, as was I. So, you know, certain ideas and philosophies hadn't fully matured yet. But for Nip, he was, you know, way ahead of his time. So to me, he was just, you know, a very intelligent person, well-spoken, authentic, didn't speak in encrypted language. Everything was raw. And very hospitable, at least for me, you know, because I'm coming into his neighborhood, and it's not like I'm going into suburbia, you know, I'm going into his backyard, which is, you know, the 60s.
And how would you describe his neighborhood? Because, you know, there's a lot of people that will be watching this around the world. What's it like in South Central LA?
Well, I think at top level, you know, outside of, you know, the gang affiliation, I would say at the top level, it's, you know, the epicenter of, you know, Black LA, right? Because I don't think percentage-wise there's any community in Los Angeles that has a higher percentage of African American in terms of demographic than the Crenshaw district. So to me, it's like Black LA, right? It is what it is, and it comes with a lot of amazing things. You know, it's like, especially when LA is so multicultural, like for the Crenshaw district to be so concentrated, you know, with African American community and all of the food and the fashion and everything, you know, that's beautiful about African American culture, you can find in the Crenshaw district. Similarly, you know, it is South Central LA, you know, so there is, you know, the gang affiliation and the gang environment, and that's a byproduct of, you know, a multitude of different things, but really just, you know, economic circumstances. You can find that in pretty much any corner of the world, there's going to be some type of gang at this point, you know, given people's economic situation in their communities. You go to Crenshaw and Slauson, and for me, you know, it feels like the center of Los Angeles, or more specifically South Central. I don't think there's two street corner or two streets that are more synonymous with, or LA really, than Crenshaw and Slauson. I think obviously Crenshaw was branded really well, you know, in the movie like Boys in the Hood, and I think that's why it's known globally. And then Slauson, for me, you know, just because of Nipsey's music and having listened to it, so that intersection of those two is unique. Then, you know, there's, you know, the type of cars that are driving by on the intersection, and the people of the Nation of Islam selling, you know, incense, you know, on the corners, or handing out the newspaper, right? Their publication. You got Woody's. It's a barbecue spot, local barbecue spot. You smell the aroma. You see the check cashing spots. You see, you know, the small plazas, and then right across the big plazas. Then two gas stations. There's the Arco, and then there's the Shell. And the Shell, you know, was like a main touch point of Nipsey's childhood and even adulthood, because that was where everyone congregated from his neighborhood. So, I mean, that's the best way I could describe it. It's like as authentic as it gets, you know, when it comes to LA and it comes to Black culture.
So looking at this photo 14 years on, what does this mean to you now?
To me, I think in terms of the full body of work that we have, it's unique because it's in color. You know, we made a conscious decision when we started working, you know, collaboratively, you know, all the way in 2010 to shoot all black and white. This specific moment in my career, I was shooting a lot of mixture of color and black and white. So I'm really glad I got this one in color, because that building is so iconic. You know, it's like bright yellow. It definitely is not meant to like blend in with the rest of the buildings on the block. It's meant to like stand out. It's a stone's throw away from the store, the Marathon clothing store, or was. And so when I look at this photo, I just look at, you know, I think of like a young visionary, a pioneer, a radical, someone that was heavily rooted in his beliefs and wasn't willing to waver, you know, for nobody. And you can tell he just looks very poised. He looks very confident. He looks like he's at home, which he is. He looks comfortable. And really, this was like a outtake just in between shooting, you know, different pickup shots for the music video. And the music video itself part of it was very produced, and a lot of it was just really guerrilla style, just run and gun. Fit well with my style, you know, because it's photojournalism. It's a little bit of photojournalism. It's a little bit of like classic portrait photography. And you see he's really young right there. You see another good marker is like the classic Malcolm X chain and the big gold Cuban link, the classic All Money In logo, you know, on the shirt. So, and you could tell even by the style of jeans, you know what time it is. A little bit larger, but not too big, not too tight. So these are all like even fashion cues that you can like identify, like, oh, this is around the era this was shot.
If you're enjoying the content on my channel, there's also a good chance you're gonna like my newsletter. It's a free exclusive email that I send on a regular basis, sharing what motivates me through YouTube, podcasts, athletes, hip hop, art, and more to help inspire you. I've put the newsletter link below in the description of this video. All right, let's get back into the interview. All right, well, so let's break down the next photo. I remember visiting you in this studio.
Sure, I remember that.
What year is this?
At this point, we established, I started working with Nipsey in 2008. I met him in 2008. We shot, different like editorial projects and a mixtape packaging between 2008 into this latter part of 2010. So around November 2010, Nipsey, reaches out. They wanted to meet with me because there's a studio space that had just become available one door down from his studio, one of his studios, right? And so he said, maybe this is a space that we can share. And I said, okay, this sounds interesting because I lived at my parents' house at the time, so I would love to have a studio space where I can work and, bring clients through and just, really get my creative juices flowing. I met with Nipsey at his studio, which was, on Wilshire and Alvarado. We had a conversation about a couple of different things, but specifically the fact that he was leaving Epic Records, which was his record label at the time, and he was going to go indie again, and that one of the elements that he wanted to control, in this next phase of his career, was his visual branding and the visual language that was being used to communicate, who he was as an artist and as a human being. He thought that my talent and his talent complemented each other, and perhaps there'd be some type of interest in working, more regularly in a collaborative nature. And maybe that door is through having a shared space together. Having already been a fan of his music and of, admiring him as a person, for me, it was, easy call, to jump in fully. This image that you're seeing now was probably shot within that same month. So now he's probably like about 80% done with the Marathon Mixtape, and he's still recording records, still fine-tuning certain things. We had already started shooting, virtually from the day that we said, like, let's lock in. We had started shooting, pretty much I was with him virtually every day, every single day, moving with him, in his different cars, going to the shop, going to all the different meetings, the different places he'd go to. So, I guess comparable to maybe Pete Souza, how he moves with President Obama or with Reagan. That's how I was moving with him. So, you get some really cool intimate photos. This one in specific was with the idea of shooting something for the mixtape cover for the Marathon Mixtape. So this time for me, I was really dialed in with everything that Richard Avedon did. For those who are familiar with Richard Avedon or may not be, his style was really nice, tight, close-up portraits, on a medium format camera, like a Rolleiflex, and then a white seamless and, some, soft light, to light the subject's face or just available light, really, if you're shooting in a space that has light that spills in, not too harsh. In the studio space, there was almost practically floor-to-ceiling windows. It wasn't the largest space, but it was the perfect studio for what we needed at the time. Nipsey is seated on my Pelican case, camera case. That was the seat. It's not an Apple box or, a stool. He's sitting on the Pelican case. I have my Yashica 124 6x6 medium format camera set up with black and white film with a close-up kit, added to the lens. And yeah, we shot several different images. That's the image that was produced from there. I love it because it has that nice contrast on the right side. Well, if you're looking at it on the left side of his face and on the right, you have the nice spilling of the light. It's not perfectly lit, but it actually ended up translating really well that it had that contrast on one side of his face and the other side more lit. Because when I ended up applying his lyrics over his face, that everybody knows as the final product of the Marathon Mixtape, I think it just helped, give some dynamic range to the look of the graphic.
And was the initial game plan to shoot black and white from the beginning, and also explain why you shot on film as well?
Sure. So the initial plan was to shoot on black and white because Nipsey, was always came with great ideas, and my responsibility was helping execute those ideas and bringing some of my sauce to it. So in this one in specific, he showed me a black and white I'll send you the reference as well, a black and white image of Andy Warhol with text overlaid on him, and he said, I like what that looks like. Not specifically like, hey, let's do this exact, but I like what that looks like, hinting like, let's try this as an option. Because, you know, initial ideas sometimes make it and then veer off into another direction because that initial concept didn't translate. But he had the idea already in mind. Like, I wanted, you know, black and white photo, and let's try it with the text overlay. And I have the three different lines that I want to use, you know, 3 different lyrics that I want to overlay over on my face for this cover. Yeah, the intention was to shoot in black and white, and even the whole series and even the like body of work that we shot, we intentionally shot on film. I don't know, I prefer the look of it. 1, 2, a lot of my contemporaries at the time were shooting heavily digital. Now I know it's kind of come back into the scene where it's like a novelty of sort, or more people starting to shoot film again, which is a good thing. Fortunately, there's not that much film stock available. You know, like there's like very limited, like 100 speed, 400 speed. If you get lucky, 800 speed and 3200 speed. That's it, right? Whereas before there was a lot more options, a lot different brands that were producing film. But I say this all to say, for me, it was just like, from a branding standpoint, we always talked about USPs, unique selling points. And for us, while all our contemporaries are shooting digital, which had its look, and it looks dope too, you know, we wanted to make sure that ours looked different. So yeah, that was pretty much it.
All right, let's get into photo number 3. You've titled this one Free at Last. What's the story behind this, and when was it taken?
This was shot, I believe, 2011, 2012. Nipsey, you know, like a lot of, you know, young people, you know, in the States and specifically in LA, are plagued by, you know, probation. You make a couple mistakes early on. Law enforcement, you know, it has you on a hook, you know, and has you, you know, on a probationary period where you have to check in on a regular basis, no matter what your age is, you know. So you might have let's just say you made a couple of legal mistakes, you know, when you were young, and now you're 25, 26, 27. You still have to go check in with a, you know, probation officer, you know, make sure that everything is in line. And it takes quite a while, you know, for people to shake this probation stuff loose. And so for Nipsey, that was the case, you know. Now as a professional, he's doing music, fully dedicated to music. He's an entrepreneur. He's operating, you know, multiple businesses. And still, despite all of this, he's still on probation, on paper. So this, you know, I remember visiting the probation office with him, this specific probation office with him in South Central, you know, several times. A lot specifically before going out of town. You have to go to probation officer, you know, and give them the heads up that in his case, hey, I have a show. Just want to make sure that it's not in conflict with any of whatever we have set and going on. This is what I have to do. These are the days. This is what this is where I'm going to stay. All those details that you typically, you know, if you weren't on probation, you don't have to tell anybody about these personal items. But when you are on probation, you have to like be an open book and make sure to check in with somebody. So that was something that for anybody could be, you know, a big, you know, nuisance. But especially if you're an artist and you're a professional and you're a businessman and you got to go check in with someone else to make sure that it's okay that you make money to feed your family, you know, and you can go out of town. So around 2000, I don't want to misquote, but I feel like this was 2011. He finally, you know, got released, you know, off probation, and he went and got a tattoo on his hand that said "Free at Last," you know, to kind of mark that closing chapter of that era of his life, you know, where you have to deal with probation. We wanted to go revisit the probation center in his car, you know, to kind of show past and present, and just like kind of something just reflective. And I think also it's like symbolic, you know, for a lot of people, as a lot of things that Nipsey did, you know, or, you know, naturally, because he was so identifiable, you know, he's someone from the neighborhood that, you know, you can do it too. You know, and that there's other options, there's other outlets, and that doesn't mean you have to switch up. That doesn't mean you have to be somebody, you know, completely different from who you are naturally. But there are decisions that you have to make, you know, to be able to to elevate and evolve and progress in your life. So you don't have to check in with no probation officer, because no grown man wants to check in with no other grown man ever in life. And so that to me was a celebratory moment, also a reflective moment, you know.
Was this a setup shot, or was this a candid moment?
This was a setup shot. I think Nipsey definitely wanted to put this image out. It was 2011, 2012, but we have several other images at that same probation office that literally was moving with him because he had to go see a probation officer. But you know, there were certain milestones and certain things that we wanted to make sure like we captured, and that we didn't go, you know, without having record of it, so that so that they could be, you know, presented and people could see like the evolution and the progress.
And so was Nipsey happy to give you full access, or was it quite limited to what he wanted to show and what he wanted documented?
We learned how to communicate, like when it was appropriate to shoot and when it wasn't. You know, I've never been someone that's overzealous and oversteps boundaries and just like I could read a room. You know, it's not like I would just, you know, jump out the window and see something and be like, oh, I'm gonna just start shooting it. But for the most part, you know, because of the relationship that we developed, you know, obviously over time, you know, certain things are unspoken. You're already kind of like working, you know, in sync. And so Nipsey gave me, for the most part, full access, you know, to his life, because this was something that he was curating and this was coming back to him. It's not like we were working on two separate accords and I go my way and I start publishing images, you know, without his consent. And so I've always, you know, been conscious of that. And he educated me a lot, and the way that we worked, he educated me a lot on, you know, photographer and artist relationships, you know, and the trust that goes into that. And even in communication skills and things that I thought like, oh, this is how it should be. Where in fact, you know, like I'm getting it straight from him, from an artist, that's my subject. Actually, this is what I prefer. But again, you know, everyone is different and unique. And Nipsey was definitely unique. He knew exactly how he wanted to present himself. Yeah, you just got to read the room.
For the photography fans that'll be watching this, what camera and film are you shooting this on?
This image in specific was shot on a Canon AE1, and more than likely like on 400 T-Max. I usually, in daylight, 400 T-Max, and nighttime, the 3200 is what I would typically use from Kodak.
All right, well, let's jump into the next photo, because I'm excited to hear the background story on this one.
Okay, so this next image, so now we've already established that the Marathon cover was shot on Wilshire and Alvarado, right? That was the first studio where Nip and I worked at. We ended up moving studios from Wilshire and Alvarado, which is kind of like in the outskirts of downtown LA, to the center of downtown LA and downtown, off of 7th and Olive. We had a studio there. Nipsey, you know, had built out, you know, a compound of sorts, you know, to record and also to conduct business and read and meditate and, you know, do all the amazing things that Nipsey did, you know, like that was unique and different to him. And so at this time, this is 2013. Most people know this milestone in particular of Nipsey's. This is when he dropped the infamous $100 mixtape, the Crenshaw Mixtape, limited edition, 1,000 CD run, and 100 of those CDs, you know, on the release date were purchased by Jay-Z. This was, you know, a unique moment in Nipsey's career, and just as a team, a lot of the team had, you know, their reservations, to be honest. And I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I don't think anyone else on our team would sit here and lie and say that, oh, we knew a $100 mixtape was just gonna fly off the shelves. Did we know that the content in the music was of that value? Of course, we thought it was valued at even more than that, you know, but the truth is the era that we were, you know, releasing music in, and at that time in 2013, people were were listening to music for free, right? Or, you know, at a fraction of $100, you know, at a fraction of the price of data subscription with any of the streaming platforms. This time in specific, actually, a lot of the mixtapes were free on that PIF. You know, you just had to like sign up and free account and you get the music for free. So Nipsey, you know, was bold. He read a book called Contagious. And when reading that book, he read a story in specific about a restaurant in Philadelphia that was selling a $100 Philly cheesesteak sandwich. And so when he read that specific section of that Contagious book, that sparked his idea to do $100, to do $100 mixtape. This image in particular is, okay, now he's sold through throughout 1,000 copies, and now he's signing them in his studio. So it's kind of cool because you get visual cues within the image that give you kind of like the era. So we just talked about the Marathon mixtape in 2010, and now you're seeing it in the background, the final product, sitting on his wall. You're still seeing all of like the game plans on his dry eraser boards that he has now for the future. And now he's signing his mixtape covers, his mixtape. So he would sign and number them, and then we would ship them out. And so a lot of people have referenced this particular release as like an early concept, proof of concept to an NFT, right? Because you're purchasing something, right, at a premium price, and it has utility as well, because anyone who purchased this Crenshaw mixtape got access to a private show. And only the people that had purchased this $100 Proud to Pay mixtape had access to the private show. So some people have even credited him giving hints or putting the breadcrumbs towards the NFT idea of buying, something that's either intangible or tangible, or intangible, right, or tangible, and getting some type of utility, some type of experience through it. So I think that's pretty dope. Mentioned the concept, but Proud to Pay. So that was pretty much the brand behind the idea of, selling premium price products with some type of utility attached to it.
And so were these photographs being used for a particular series, or this was just general documentation?
General documentation. I mean, I would say from 2010 to 2015, my camera didn't stop. I was with him all the time. I think where it took a bit of a turn, it was because my time was split, was when, I became Nipsey's tour manager. Then I was very conflicted because now the fly on the wall photography that we have been covering for half a decade, now my attention was split between handling, logistics and administrative matters for his touring, and also trying to cover the photography. And, I try to juggle them both as best as I could. But I think like around 2017, 2018, it was when I was fully immersed in doing tour management for him. And another videographer and photographer came on board, which is Norby.
And just going back to this mixtape, I mean, as you're saying, Nipsey was so far ahead of his time, and he was such a visionary, forward thinker. What was one of the best things that you learned from Nipsey in terms of, business moves?
I think the biggest thing that I learned from Nipsey as it relates to business is never waver from your gut feeling and what you want, out of a situation. It's never settling, never compromising your integrity, never compromising the authenticity of your product. I guess it's best phrased as brand over business. That was something that he championed and celebrated a lot in a philosophy that part of, our brand's ecosystem. It's always putting brand over business. So I think his career in a lot of ways was testament to that concept, because there were several opportunities for Nipsey to become more mainstream early on in his career, but it would come at a cost of either ownership or at the cost of, the way he wants to present himself, in an authentic fashion, or the type of music that he wants to create. So all those things are like principles that he carried with him and was unwilling to like bend or fold. And so for me, as a fellow artist in a different medium, he does music, me and myself in visual imagery, it's never compromising, always making sure, you stick to your script, because that's when you're gonna produce the best content or the best product possible. The best output comes from you doing what you innately are meant to do.
All right, should we jump into this next photo? I'm keen to hear the stories behind this.
Sure.
Did you want to talk a little bit about the video that you sent across as well that accompanies the photo, or do you want to jump into the photo first?
Sure, I can go with the video. I'll give you the backstory. So Nipsey, started the relationship with Puma, I feel like around 2016, 17. And so everyone had always, especially when Jay-Z did his 444 tour, they knew that he traveled in this Puma jet. It's all black. It's like Hermes interior, like some elements of it are designed by him. So, and it has, the 444 signature on the tail of the jet, and then it has a Puma logo. Just really like nice, classy jet, private jet. As a fan of Jay-Z, you hear about it, you're like, oh man, you see the pictures, that Lenny S post, and you're like, wow, that's it's a nice jet. Nipsey, I believe, had already gone on the Puma jet. I think with his grandmother and with his brother Sam, Black Sam, they went to Vegas, for activation, and he might have traveled on it maybe once, even additional to that. But Nipsey, one thing that was so beautiful about Nip is that he was always inclusive of his team. It was never about, it was never like a selfish moment with Nipsey where he was just like, this is about me, this is my moment, this is, what I did. I mean, virtually, if you literally scrub through all of his interviews or any conversations that were recorded, he's always big upping his team. He's always giving credit to the people around him. And to me, that's like in super rare form, because people in any career path, like are always, or in whatever you do, you're always naturally inclined to pat yourself in the back, when you do things. But Nipsey, always gave credit where credit was due or where it wasn't due. Like because he wanted to uplift the people around him, and his success was our success and vice versa. Getting an opportunity to share the Puma jet, experience, with his team was very special. This was on a trip back from NBA All-Star Weekend in Charlotte, and so we fly out of Charlotte back to LA. It's Nipsey, DJ VIP, Norby, Kabi, Adam, and J-Rock. So this is like our team that traveled regularly for spot dates. It's not our full team, but it's a good lion's share of our team. When I got the news, that we're gonna fly from Charlotte to LA, I remembered a tweet that I put out in like 2010, 2011, that I said something to the effect of like, I look forward to eating conchas and chocolate abuelita on the PJ. So conchas are like sweetbread, like Mexican sweetbread. And then chocolate abuelita is like a signature, like hot chocolate, Mexican hot chocolate. So I thought that would be just something kind of cool just to try to manifest and put out to the world. But sure enough, now the opportunity presents itself where we can actually do that. So I went to the supermarket before, the day before the flight, bought all the ingredients. When we got on board to the flight, gave it to the stewardess and just told her, like save this for a little bit later. And sure enough, we all get in there bright-eyed, because it's a private jet. None of us have flown private other than J-Rock. He's worked with other artists as well, and Nipsey. The rest of us, this was our first, private jet experience. So it was cool to share, with each other, and we're just having a good time, taking pictures, cracking jokes. But the video on reference that I sent you, this is finally when the stewardess brings out this, Mexican hot chocolate, the chocolate abuelita, and the conchas, the sweetbread, and he serves everybody, their respective share, their respective portion. I think the only people that probably had that combination was myself and Norby, because he's Mexican as well. Everyone else's was like relatively new concept from what I drew, But everybody enjoyed it, and it was like it was literally breaking bread and symbolically breaking bread, which I think, spoke volumes on, the camaraderie and the brotherhood, amongst our team, and, all of the milestones that we've crossed, together, banded together, working together. And so Nipsey, I remember when we're having this moment, he starts playing some music, and he plays corridos, right? And he's just having a good time, and it's just like, it's completely unguarded, which for the most part he was. And to me, it revealed like just how fun Nipsey is, because I don't know how many people got an opportunity to see, he was just like great energy, a ball of energy. Anywhere, any room we walked into was just good, positive energy, good conversation. We were amongst us joking around virtually the whole time, clowning on each other. And I mean, it's like you couldn't ask for anything better, a better group of people to share, your career and time with and grow with together. It's just like, it's always good times. It's almost like you have to pinch yourself repeatedly. Like, is this really happening? This is like, it's like too good to be true. We get to share, these experiences with one another, and we're having a good time, and we're making a living from doing it. So this image, the image in particular that I'm sharing with you, is just, to me, it's kind of like a moment of, again, another level, that Nipsey has reached, because you see him in each different environment, Sloss and Donuts, it's still like it's on the ground zero, Crenshaw, Sloss, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and then in front of the probation office. It's a very similar profile to the same image, right? In fact, it's the same side of his profile. And you see a different environment. Now it's like, okay, we're removing ourselves from, these things that are detrimental to career and to what I'm trying to do and I'm trying to evolve. And then you see that image at his studio. Now as businessman, it's a little bit more evolved. You see the plans popping up. You see, projects on the board. You see another milestone crossed, where he's signing the Crenshaw mixtapes. And then this one is just like, it's the boss that he's always been. Feet kicked up, chilling. Again, this is the image, and then you have the other contrasting side where he's having fun. But to me, it was just like, I know for him that he cares so much about people and including them in his experiences and his success, that was like a proud moment. That was like, man, I feel good. Like there's a lot of other things that for other people might have felt like this was success, but I think when he gets to share it with the people that he loves and he cares about, like that was like the ultimate like marker where it's like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. This is what we're supposed to be doing. And it's also inspiration for his team, like this is how, if we keep moving the way we move, like this is how we're gonna move, because we put in the work.
Was this image like one of the last photos that you got of Nipsey? Was this towards the end of the journey?
Yeah, I would say so. I think this was, I believe, All-Star Weekend. Yeah, it was in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So this is probably of the most recent images that I got to shoot of Nip. And this is one of those moments where I'm not, running back and forth with, promoter or, front of house, for a concert. Like this is literally like, we're chilling. And I got my camera and, get back in my mode, where we started.
How would you describe your relationship with Nipsey? Because it sounds like it wasn't just business. You guys were definitely a family.
Yeah, definitely. My relationship with Nip was like, I've had the amazing fortune of having, an older sister who's 9 years my elder. That's my only sibling. But I always wondered what it would be like to have a brother, either a little brother or a big brother, So Nip, in a lot of ways, Nip and Sam and the rest of, our team, it's like brotherhood. And with Nip, it was just, just amazing just to get access to someone, that had so much intellect and, was so introspective and always gave like amazing advice, and just someone that was knowledgeable about a plethora of different things. Somebody that legitimately cared about your well-being, that's gonna give it to you raw, that's gonna tell you when you're right, and that's gonna tell you when you're wrong, So, most people will always tell you when you're right, but they're not gonna tell you when you're wrong because interfering or damaging your relationship. But, Nipsey always gave it to me raw, and any advice that he gave or any opinion that he had. Again, I always pinch myself thinking like we didn't grow up together. The fact that we got to work together in the capacity that we did, I feel like was like a complete outlier situation. I was an anomaly, And I mean, naturally, when as any artist, you want to work with people that you grew up with, and you give people the respective, roles, and you try to put people on from your community, and which he did, by the way, he did a lot of that. But the fact that, we live relatively close to each other. I mean, in the same county, but worlds apart in terms of, where we grew up. I grew up in Rosemead, San Gabriel. He grew up in, South Central LA in the Crenshaw district. The fact that we were able to connect, some believe in it, others don't. I believe in destiny. That's the only way I could explain it. I think it was, the law of attraction. He was looking for a certain type of person to be, in his circle, and, to entrust with such a big responsibility in telling his visual story and being able to share stories like this, and given the circumstance. I take on that responsibility fully, and I understand that it's important, to continue to uplift and share, the story of, somebody, that to the world is a phenomenon, and it's great and it's all true. Just a person that was, is a beautiful human being, and my relationship with him, like the conversations that we've had, whether it was, career related or not, or just about family or friendship, relationships. I mean, we covered, what any good friend or any good brother, any brothers would, converse about. And, having the opportunity to speak with him and just the level of intelligence and clarity that he operated with was, a huge gift to my life.
Looking back at the time that you guys have spent together, it's been a big journey. Have you got an all-time favorite moment that you cherish with Nipsey Hussle?
Man, there's been so many moments, that stand out with Nip. So many good times, so many challenging moments. But I think for me, one of the ones that stands out the most was when my firstborn, was when my wife was expecting our firstborn, Jorge. We had his baby shower. I felt like it was around summertime, because my son was born December 1st. So we had a big party at our house, like a big baby shower party. And, modern times now, it's co-ed. It's not just women. The women get together and they do baby shower. Now it's men, women, and it's in reality everybody, kids too. So we probably had like over 200 people at my house.
Oh, wow.
For this baby shower. It was a combination of family, friends, and then obviously our immediate All-Money team. And it was just really dope, everybody, sharing the same space and, intermingling with one another. And, it was just cool just to have Nip right there with my family. And, a lot of them obviously, big fans of his music. It's cool just, and as the chaos of the baby shower with 200 people is going on, just seeing Nipsey taking shots with my Tío Oscar, or, dapping it up with my pops. Just have like everybody's guard was down. He was just having a good time. He felt like he was amongst his family, and he was just happy. I just saw just a smile on his face. Again, somebody that really loves and cares about the people that are close to him. You can tell this was like a cool milestone, life milestone to be present and, celebrate, with his brother, with me. And so to me, that's one of the things, one of the moments that stood out the most. I mean, I recall a lot of people just, giving higher praise to that specific day. Like the energy was good, the games were fun, the food was good, the music was good, the camaraderie, amongst the different tables and the intermingling of, different cultures and different walks of life, family and friends, all meeting, and all of the people that I love all in one space, having a great time. Like a lot of people just said man, there was something special that day. It was just good, It wasn't, I mean, literally, virtually everybody that came and, didn't stay for an hour or two and, hey, I gotta go, everybody stayed for the entirety of the party, and Nipsey was one of those. And like I said, it was just good energy, and I just like to see my brother happy, where he's just comfortable, and he was, I can tell he was comfortable there. And so that's one of the most memorable things. And what bigger occasion than your firstborn, or than your kid, being ready to receive, such a huge blessing from God.
Now, you were very blessed to have a special relationship with Nipsey Hussle. How do you want people to remember him?
Man, so many different things that, I can say, but I think the biggest legacy or biggest things to describe how I would love people to remember Nipsey is, and I think is in actuality what it is, somebody that was authentic, that, marched to his own beat, that never wavered from you know, his principles, somebody that was honest, somebody that was, you know, in my opinion, of very high intellect. That somebody that was inclusive of other people around him, made sure that the people around him at all levels were, you know, were good, and in every way imaginable. That they were. He was always very connected and rooted in his community. Never left it. Always wanted to lead by example. He was never the type of person to try to preach to somebody or try to tell them this is what you're doing wrong and this is how you should do it right. It was always like, I have to be the example, and if I do what I'm supposed to do, then, and people, you know, gravitate towards what I'm doing, then that'll be, you know, a catalyst for some type of change or a shift in mentality and allow people to evolve into, you know, the highest form of themselves. That's really, I mean, those are the things that I think, you know, all boiled down to one concept that I think he kind of like was pushed by, and that's to inspire people. There's nothing greater that you can do with that. To inspire somebody, you know, to evolve, to have a higher level of expectation of themselves. Like, you know, when people think like, oh, this is kind of where I plateaued because of my circumstances, it's like, no, you actually deserve to be right here and you can do it. And again, everything is lead by example. So just a person that, you know, that led by example and that inspired people.
All right, well, Jorge Peniche, I appreciate your time. You're an absolute gentleman. I'm very grateful for our friendship, and thank you so much for sharing your stories today.
Come on, man. I wouldn't share it anywhere else, man. This is the spot with Rush. He gets all the exclusives, and, you know, it's the real deal.
Oh, and just before we finish, where can people follow you on social media? Where would you like to send everyone to check out your work?
Anyone can follow me specifically on social media. It's just my full name, @Jorge Peniche, both on Instagram and on Twitter. I think it's Mr. Peniche. I couldn't get my full name, but there it is.